So we should be being live streamed right now. So no more swearing, okay? Should be being live streamed right now. So no more swearing, okay? There we go.
We also need to record then.
Should be being live streamed right now. So go ahead. Are you watching? No more swearing, okay? There we go.
We also need.
Okay. Sorry, were you trying to talk to me, or was this just at the repeat of the thing? Probably repeat.
Probably, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Probably. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Sorry, just having a hard. I was having a hard time hearing you before, but now I can hear you now, so we're good to go.
Nice. Do we need to record this?
No, we absolutely not, because we're actually pushing through LinkedIn and YouTube and all at the same time. So I think we're fine.
Awesome. Great to get started here in just about a few minutes.
That's right. So we're good to go. We have a bunch of people are active. Yes. So, hey, folks on LinkedIn, we are actually active right now. So we're going to start in about 2 minutes. Right now, you've got 2 of the hosts. 3 others are going to join very soon. So do not worry. They will show up. Hey, Ryan, welcome aboard. By the way, we are live already. For once, the streaming servers work perfectly fine. So everything, we're actually live on LinkedIn and live on YouTube right now as we speak. So welcome aboard.
Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, welcome. Sorry, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Scott, how's it going, buddy? Hey, we are live already, so just to let you know. So we are live on YouTube and we are live on LinkedIn. Everything worked perfectly for the streaming service for once. So this is awesome. So for anybody who is on live with us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, please ask your questions right now if you haven't. We're gonna start off with a few questions. And by the way, our friend QP How, he will join us shortly. So saying that. Vinny, why don't you start and take it away, maybe with introductions, maybe what the context, by all means, it's your show.
Yeah, thanks, Denny. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our first Delta Community Office Hours for 2022. We are joined by Ryan, Scott, Denny from Databricks, and QP will be joining shortly from Script. At this time, why don't we take a moment and just do some introductions? So Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Ryan and a software engineer in Databricks. Yeah, I have been working on Delta Lake for several years and basically since the beginning. And then, pretty excited to be here and then to see all of the feedback for the project. And we'll try my best to answer and help you. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you, Ryan. Thank you. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Scott. I'm also a software engineer in the same Delta ecosystem team as Ryan here at Databricks. Recently, over the past 6 months, I've been working on various ecosystem open source features and projects. So I've worked on the Delta Standalone writer, which is a single JVM writer to give you a sparkless way to write and read from Delta. Also been working on the various Flink sync and source connectors we've been building. And recently I've been working on some open source features like data skipping and as well working with the community members for multi-cluster writes with S3. So a lot of exciting stuff and happy to answer any questions about that.
That's awesome. Looks like a lot, Scott. Thanks. Denny, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, thanks a lot, Vinny. Hi, everybody. My name is Denny. I'm a longtime Spark and Delta Lake guy. Here to talk about various aspects of both from a community's perspective and also some of the integration work, the connectors work we've been doing. But I'll definitely want to have Ryan and Scott to end, and for that matter, when QB joins, QB to take the show. And then that's it for me. Back to you, Vinny.
Thanks, Denny. And myself, I am a developer advocate at Databricks. I'm here because I want to make sure that you have your questions answered in anything you are building with Delta Lake. And so we have organized this panel. Hopefully you get your questions answered. We will be monitoring YouTube as well as LinkedIn. So please post your questions there. So just to start off with, maybe we have some questions from Alexander. So he's asking, do you have any update at the status of Delta Standalone writer?
Great question, Alex. Yeah, so Delta Standalone Writer was released with the Delta Connector 0.3 release in December. So go and check it out on GitHub. And just now we're working on finalizing some documentation for that, as well as an exciting blog. So hopefully you can read all about it soon.
Great. And then Scott, why don't you give us an update for, like, I know you are working on, multi-cluster writes. So why don't you give a little bit of information around like what issue does it resolve and what made us work on that specific feature?
Yeah, great question. So Delta is this amazing technology, but all technologies have their requirements. So one of the things that Delta is dependent on with your cloud storage system is mutual exclusion with writes. Basically, you need to be able to ensure that if two writers are trying to write the same file, only one will succeed. And with S3 lacks this basic mutual exclusion property. There's no put if absent guarantee. So one of our awesome community members had the idea to use an external store, DynamoDB specifically, to provide that mutual exclusion for us. So they've written a new implementation, a new algorithm that throughout the writing process, essentially grabs a lock for that file from this external store, completes the write, and then releases that lock later on. So really exciting. And I'm hoping that once it gets released, we can get some awesome feedback on how people think about the project and how they use it for these multi-cluster writes.
So what can people expect? When can they expect this writer, this feature, Scott?
The next couple of months, we hope. We're still working right now, like these very weeks on the actual project and on the PR feedback and whatnot. So we'll see how it progresses over time.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. All right. And then I think there is a question from Hubert. He's asking, hi, are you planning to add some additional indexing? I know how to use it, partitioning and z-ordering, but the problem is that then comes someone else and query on field which require to load the whole data set. Did you get the questions?
Yeah, actually, I can probably tackle that one a little bit. So there's actually, I'm gonna actually follow with Hubert a little bit in terms of the first part is that, are you talking about open source Delta Lake or are you talking about Databricks Delta Lake, right? So in the case of additional indexing with Databricks Delta, it right now includes optimized Z order, which you had called out, which is great. There's also the Bloom filters, right? The capability that's also within the Databricks Delta. Now, saying this, we are in the process of publishing our Delta OSS roadmap, okay? And we did want to give you all a quick little preview or a quick little update, the fact that we actually are planning to open source portions of Optimize as well. So the details are going to start showing up in our proposed 2022 H1 roadmap. So would love to have your feedback on that. And so it'll show up on GitHub. Like just currently there's the 2021 H2 roadmap. We're going to close that up pretty soon, mainly to release the 2022 H1 roadmap. And we're going to call out some of the features based on the feedback we've received from the community that we're currently open sourcing. So just wanted to go ahead and hopefully that helps you a little bit with your question, Hubert, and also for the community in general. As well, I did want to pause for a second. Vinny, why don't we go ahead and introduce QP, as QP has joined us now.
Oh, hey, QP, you joined finally. Hey, QP, thanks for joining. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Awesome. Sorry for being late. There is some technical difficulties. Hi, everyone. I'm QP. I work at Script as an engineer, and I am mostly working on the Delta Lake Rust implementation.
So since you are already, in the rhythm, QP, why don't you share some progress around the, what features are being released and, status of the Rust connector?
Yeah, sure. So recently, I've been working on a formal verification of our S3 multi-writer implementation in Rust. And it's a pretty cool project. The tool that we use is called StateWrite. It lets you formally spec out your distributed design, system design in Rust through state machines, and it can basically explore all possible states and make sure that every possible state results in correct behavior. So there are a lot of other great contributions from the community as well. Thomas and Roberts, they're pushing on a new version of the Azure multi-writer support in Azure. And Robert, it's also working on a new high-level writer API that will be the foundation for us to implement proper SQL query support in Rust. So that would be really cool when it's getting done.
Got it. Thank you for those insights. So what is your favorite feature that you're working that's keeping you up at night, QP?
All of them.
That's awesome.
All of three.
That's great to hear. So community will be having like a lot of new things to try out.
Yes.
Awesome. So I have some questions on LinkedIn. There's a question from Vivek. He's asking, please throw light on data mesh concept or architecture, and how is it related to Delta Lake? Who wants to answer that question?
Yeah, I don't get so basically the question is, how do we do like data management in Delta Lake? It's like this.
I think it's data mesh.
Data mesh.
Oh, I
data
think
mesh.
it's actually reference to the data mesh concept.
Yeah, actually, I'm not familiar. Maybe.
Yeah, someone needs to define what data mesh is first. I think everyone has different definitions for that.
Right. Yeah, so no problem. We will follow up on that. And there is a question.
Actually, I can probably tackle that a little bit if you like, actually.
Yes,
so,
please go
all
ahead.
right. So first of all, we do want to call out that there are actually lots of different concepts of what data mesh is. Okay. So typically I would probably follow Martin Fowler's definition of data mesh, just because that's probably one of the more common premises of how we're supposed to do it. And if you want to think about it from a high level, the idea is instead of actually having a quote unquote centralized location for all your data, you have a mesh, i.e. you have multiple locations of where your data is. The reality when it comes to something like Delta Lake, and for that matter, honestly, any data technology, any data lake technology, any database technology, so I'm not actually trying to promote any one specific thing in this case, most systems are one form or another a data mesh, from the standpoint that you, for example, an oversimplification, your sales team has a set of data lakes, your HR team has another, your engineering team has another, but they interact with each other, right? And so from that standpoint, from that high level perspective, there's your data mesh, okay? So the context of irrelevant of how you want to define the details even deeper than that for a data mesh. The reality is all systems, when it comes to data mesh, you do care about the transactional reliability of that data, okay? And that's where Delta Lake comes in very nicely, because most people are trying to store their data in a data lake because of either the volume and or the fact that the data sizes are, the data is actually has very flexible schemas or semi-structured or whatever else. Now, all the above come into play. And so Delta Lake allows you to store your data in a data lake, but actually provides that transactional reliability. And so that's actually really important in any data mesh architecture from the standpoint that you want to make sure that for sake of argument, HR is trying to access sales data and they're doing so in a reliable way, right? In other words, they're not reading dirty reads of snapshots. They're not reading inconsistent data, things of that nature. You want to make sure any of those systems that are interacting together are actually interacting very reliably. And so the two actually, pun intended, mesh very well. But by the same token, it always is down to how you implement it. Okay, and so hopefully that helps answer your question there.
That's amazing description, Denny. Thank you for that. There's a question from Bhushan around Delta Live Tables. What is the frame for GA? And I guess from the open source perspective, we are still thinking about what features to bring in the roadmap. So please vote for that feature. But but if you have a question in terms of Databricks, would anybody from the panel like to answer this question? The question is, what is the time frame for GA for Delta Live tables?
Yeah, I think this is probably not a good channel to answer or basically asking Delta Live table questions because most of our people are not working on this project. So it's better you can try to talk to Databricks. Maybe I think Databricks also have like a formula. You can ask question there. Yeah, let me try to find the link and then, or maybe who can post the Databricks tab link to.
Yeah, we can certainly do that, Ryan. If you post it in our chat, I will do that. Thank you, Ryan.
No problem.
Yeah. Another question is, hi team, would like to know if there are any plans for overwriting a Delta partition dynamically.
So the context I think you're trying to ask basically is dynamic partition overwrites, okay, in Delta Lake. Now, right now, as of Delta Lake 1.1, there is the replace square that allows you to do it arbitrarily. I think there is, like, this is where Ryan and Scott are going to correct me if I'm wrong. There are plans for this, but I honestly don't know what our current timeline for that is right now. So that part I don't know. But there certainly are plans because, and for that matter, the reason why I did call out the upcoming 2022 H1 roadmap on GitHub is because we would love you to go ahead and provide feedback. We did actually get some feedback about dynamic partition overwrites in our Delta Lake GitHub. I think I saw a couple of in the last couple of months. So there is that ask as it's coming up, but by the same token, there have been other asks that have been higher priority from the community, such as the Flink connector and the Presto connector. So we've been focusing on that. So if there is more of an ask for dynamic partition overwrites, please do chime in so we can take into account of that as we start building up the roadmap.
Yeah, and then we will post the links to the GitHub as well so that you can vote for the issue, or maybe if you have any suggestions, you can contribute. Awesome. Moving on to our next question. There's a question around CDC. So if we implement CDC message from RDS to Kafka to Spark and save them into Delta tables, however, people have different understanding on bronze, silver, gold tables. Want to get some more official suggestion. So I guess this is the official suggestion request for like any best practices around implementing CDC message for this kind of workflow.
I can actually probably tackle that unless anybody else wants to tackle it. Okay, so all right, so there's two quick things. There's the OSS Delta answer and there's the Delta on Databricks answer, by the way, okay? So the OSS Delta answer is when you're working with CDC. It depends on if you're trying to use Delta as your CDC source or as your sink. Now, if you're using it as your source, in fact, there's a very good tech talk. Mind you, I'm in it too, so my apologies. That's a shameless plug here. But called Using Delta as Your CDC Source. It's Paul Room. He's the real person who actually knows what he's talking about, but I happen to be there as well. So again, shameless plug. But that should provide you some context in which we also describe that concept of bronze, silver, gold, okay, in terms of how you architect this thing out. Now, if you're going to use it as a sink, though, right, where you're using Delta as your sink, in essence, that is your bronze table. So if you're talking like from a Kafka topic, or for that matter, Kinesis, Azure Event Hubs, or whatever else, as that data is dumping in and you're making that as your CDC sink, then your Delta table actually acts as a very good table to basically store both the actual fact table itself and also the changing in history, i.e. the inserts, updates, deletes, the actual actions that you want to go do. All right. In the case of Databricks Delta, we also include a change data feed, CDF, which actually generates that action table, that change table that I was just referring to, automatically for you. And so and if you take a look at actually how CDF works, in a lot of ways, if you look at that webinar that I was referring to, we actually talk exactly about how to generate that table yourself as well. Anyways, if you want to do this with an open source Delta. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can basically leverage here. And so, yeah, by all means, go ahead and hopefully that helps you with the concept of like how to differentiate between your bronze, silver, gold when it comes to CDC.
Yeah, and also like there are some good documentation around how you can go with the medallion, architecting the medallion architecture. We will share some resources so you have good understanding around like best practices as well. Thank you, Danny, for that insight. There is another question on out of memory issues. So Sam is asking, hi, any advice on troubleshooting out of memory issues on Spark Delta Lake? I found it is a bit difficult to correlate Spark DAG and SQL logic plan with actual code lines. Ryan,
yeah,
do you want
this
to
is a pretty like a challenging problem to like debug. I think, yeah, for any out of memory issue, because it can happen in any place. And what you see in the state trace may not point to the real like a memory, the place that uses a lot of memory. So in the past, I generally just try to like do a heap dump. Not sure if it's possible or in your environment. But for me, I usually just do a heap dump and trying to look at what type of object like has the most like memory like in usage in the heap dump, and then try to find out which one is the major like usage and then debug these issues. It could be code by Delta, Spark, or your code. Yeah, so it's kind of probably it's harder to have a general suggestion here, but then we need to look at the issues case by case.
Yeah, perfect. And as Ryan mentioned, like if you have any specific issue, we are happy to look at it, maybe post like, have a conversation with us on our Delta OSS Slack channel, and we will be happy to like, go through your issue and provide any suggestions. Hope that helps, Sam. Great question. There is another question. It's a Spark streaming job appends data as Delta on HDFS and periodically checking the transaction logs and runs compaction for uncompacted partitions. I have tried adding debug log in the code, viewing Spark history server, DAG and read logs. So I think he's just expanding on like what problems he's having. So we are happy to take a look at it, from the Slack. So Sam, please, reach to us on Slack. Thank you. Moving over to the question about Delta standalone writer. So Scott, you mentioned that you're working on this feature. Any updates, like what people can look forward to in the roadmap?
So since we just released the latest version in December, we're still working on gathering requirements for and feature requests for what users want going forwards. So that's still to be decided. I know like some exciting things that were added in the last release, besides the awesome ability to write to Delta tables, there was also a variety of performance improvements. So one of which is an actual iterator API that people can use to read from Delta tables, and that absolutely will avoid out of memory issues because you're no longer storing the entire state of the table, the latest state of the table in memory. It's just a very efficient iterator API. So that's an exciting thing that we did release. Going forwards, we're still figuring out what the community wants. But feel free to comment on our roadmap, and give us suggestions.
So like Scott said, we recently released the feature. Please try the feature, give us the feedback, and if we missed out on anything, the community would take a look at it. Awesome. And then there is a question around how the Delta 1.1 doesn't just support Apache's Spark 3.2, but requires it, right? Yeah, and the question is right. For Delta Lake 1.1, it does require Apache Spark 3.2. Ryan or Scott, anybody, any questions or thoughts around it?
Oh, what's the ask? You mean try to support other like all the Spark versions? Is it this the ask?
So the ask kind of maybe like, if for example, we are not using Apache Spark, Delta Lake can still work on other platform. It just doesn't require Apache Spark, right?
So I'm just trying to understand the question here. So currently, yeah, basically for Spark itself, basically Delta Lake had tried to support as many Spark versions as possible, but due to some technical limitations, we have to pick up some minor Spark version support, because Delta is kind of use a lot of Spark private APIs to do performance improvements and then new features. So this is why we only pick up one minor Spark version to support in each Delta Lake version. For others, like a Presto or Hive connector. So for Hive connector, now in the new version, we support both Hive 2 and Hive 3. And for Presto, I think we are working with the Presto DB community to add the Presto connector to the latest Presto version. And I think Presto is kind of release pretty fast. So hope you can upgrade your Presto very soon. Yeah.
Got it.
And Danny, do you have any other comments for this?
No. I mean, just as a quick call out, thank you, Ryan. I mean, the quick call out, and this is related to some of the questions that I've been seeing on YouTube and LinkedIn about the manifest file. The manifest file, I'm just going to go backwards a little bit just so I can answer two questions at once. When it comes to generating the manifest file, if you are trying to debug some of the issues that we have, honestly, you probably want to join us in the Delta user Slack and ask us questions there so we can see exactly what the problem is. Okay, it's a little hard for us to do this, live. Now, saying that, what we can talk about real high level from a manifest file perspective is that it is a file that is generated that contains a list of the files that make up that version of the Delta table. Remember, a Delta table is comprised of multiple files, and those files are associated with different versions. So that way you have time travel and historical context, right? So in other words, you're on version, let's just say 20 of the table. Well, the manifest can automatically generate, when upon insertion or update or whatever you do to it, there's the X number of files that are associated with version 20, and then bam, there's the manifest. Presto, Athena can go read it, and we're good to go. Now, the concern that you may be running into, and this is a common enough occurrence, is that when you're trying to generate the manifest file automatically while there are a lot of concurrent transactions on the table at the same time, especially write transactions. In other words, you're inserting, updating, merging, deleting from that Delta table so quickly that basically the manifest file generation cannot be kept up, especially if you have multiple users trying to query the data at the same time. So if you got, like for sake of argument, 6 writers that are trying to write to the Delta Lake table at the same time, and you got 20 readers, and they're all trying to read different versions of the table, they're invariably going to run into problems. That's why, now here's a solution. That's why Scott and Brian had created the Delta Standalone Reader. It allows us to go ahead and at the point of read know exactly what metadata, i.e. what set of files that are associated with the read that you made the request at that point in time. Currently, the Presto DB Reader itself, just like Ryan called out, is actually using this new version of the Delta Standalone Reader that was released as part of 0.3. The blog's coming out soon. I think it'll be next week, if I recall correctly. And so that allows us to go ahead and be able to read without the need of a manifest file. We are currently working with the Athena communities and the Trino communities based off of that same code base that we've already placed into Presto. And just like also Ryan called out, Hive 2, Hive 3 also leverage the same Delta Standalone Reader. And then just because I always love pitching the Delta Standalone Writer, that same Delta Standalone project also has the writer, and the upcoming project from Flink is actually initially we're using Flink to also do the writer. And oh, I'm sorry, I did realize I forgot to include Apache Pulsar. They actually are updating their reader to use the new version of Delta Standalone Reader as well. So hopefully that's enough of the details behind it. But again, in terms of debugging more, I would highly suggest joining the Delta IO user Slack. So that way we can probably dive deeper into those concepts. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Denny and Ryan. I think there's one feature that we released, Delta Standalone Writer, in December, and I think that has opened room for a lot of connectors, as well as people to use like non-standard Spark versions. So that's a great feature. There is one question around: can we have a brief about Delta Lake and its uses? we certainly can, but just from the panel, like if anybody wants to tackle this question and just throw in some use cases for Vishal, that would be great. QB, you have been quiet. How about you answer this?
The question is about Delta Lake and its use cases.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest use case that we have is just being able to unify all the streaming and batch workloads into a single location. As a consumer of the data source, we can just consume it as a streaming source, and then as a producer, both batch job and streaming job can write to the same location, which makes it really flexible for us and really simplifies our stack. We don't have to separate these two different types of workloads into different systems. I think that's a great benefit of using Delta.
Yeah, couldn't have asked this question to any other panelist better than the consumer of Delta Lake itself. Thanks, QP. With that, I think we have tackled most of the questions, and I don't see any more, but happy to go over any questions as a follow-up. I guess we are a bit closer to the time. So thank you all for joining us, and it was an exciting panel. We shared great insights. These office hours are scheduled monthly. If you have any feedback around like frequency of this office hours, as well as if you have questions in the meantime, please join us through Slack, Google group, or we also have GitHub. So please participate in the community, and looking forward to having conversations with you. Thank you to the panel. Yeah.
Oh, one quick call out. Sorry, we actually do them bi-weekly now. So yeah, so every 2 weeks we'll actually have these community office hours. So if we didn't even answer your question now, you can always wait till next in 2 weeks from now. And just like Vinny called out, please join us at Delta User Slack. We've got lots of members, and we're all very active. Not just the folks here, but there's a lot of other people that are super active that can provide answers as well. So just wanted to call that out.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Danny. And, there were the swags from the past session. Any status on that, Danny?
Oh, I'm sorry, say that again. I apologize.
From the roadmap survey, we had announced the swag.
Oh, sorry, the swag. Yes, if everybody's wondering about the swag. Yes, the swag has actually already been sent out, but it started about 2 weeks ago. Our fulfillment process actually already initiated. You should all receive it within the next 2 to 4 weeks. If you don't, definitely ping us at Delta User Slack under Events channel, so we can go ahead and follow up with that, because it was all sent out already. And just little tidbit call out, since we're ending right now, 2022 H1 roadmap will be coming out very soon. It should actually be coming out before the next our next community office hours. So,
that's awesome. Thank you, Denny. And thank you, Ryan, Scott, QP. Great having you, and great having the audience. We'll look forward in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.